Good morning. In 1954, Senator Joseph McCarthy was the chief counsel during the Army-McCarthy hearings in the U.S. Senate and was investigating in Hollywood and New York City theaters for suspecting communists who were directors, actors, actresses, and even playwrights. And if so they were, then they would be kicked out of their careers. Marvin Porter happened to be an uprising new playwright in Brooklyn. And unfortunately, he was one of those so-called communists. And Senator Joseph McCarthy and lawyer Roy Cohn kicked him out of his playwright career. Later on in his life, Roy Cohn happened to be Donald Trump's lawyer in the early 1980s. And Roy taught all of his tricks over to Trump. And Marvin Porter in 1963, he was in a small apartment, all alone, and having only one brother, and he hadn't spoken to his mother ever since Roy Cohn and Senator McCarthy kicked him out of being a playwright and ruined his life. The front door suddenly opens with Marvin and Sammy laughing, and their clothes are wet from the rain outside. Let me go get a towel. Marvin goes into the bathroom.
Hello, Baxter. Hello, George.
Did you both jump off the Brooklyn Bridge?
No, just a surprising downpour, and we had fun splashing in the gutter all the way home.
Marvin enters and hands Sammy a towel. Here, and I'll get some hot coffee to warm you up. Marvin enters into the kitchen.
It looks like you were hungry, George. Did you like it?
I was so hungry I can't remember what it tasted like. Well, someone appreciated my delicious dinner. What took you so long?
We took a lovely walk through the park before the sky opened up with a tsunami.
Marvin enters the room. I see you're eating, George. As you can see, I was hungry, and since when do you go outside for a walk? What's hard about it, George? Is there a law about it? There is knocking on the front door, and Marvin opens it, seeing City. Marvin, it's your mother, and an ambulance is coming. Why? She's on the floor and having trouble breathing. Please hurry. George jumps up, rushing through the door, and Marvin grabs Sammy's hand, pulling her through the door, leaving Baxter dumbfounded and troubled as he quickly picks up the dishes, wine bottle, glasses, and folding table and taking them into the kitchen. Soon Marvin returns and calmly looks at Baxter. Baxter, you're part of our family. I want you with us. Will you please come with me? I feel honored. Most definitely, my friend. They exit together from the apartment, and the lights slowly fade as the room goes to black. Act 2, Scene 2. It is 3 days later on Friday, November 22nd, 1963, and the lights slowly rise with classical music playing, and Baxter carrying the folding card table to the middle of the room. He is dressed in a dark blue suit, and he returns to the kitchen bringing out small plates of turkey and ham, along with crackers and bread, with carrots and celery, with a bowl of blue cheese dip. He also brings wine glasses and bottles of wine to the table. There is a knock on the front door, and he opens it, seeing George standing in the doorway wearing a black suit and tie. "Hello, George. I thought you wouldn't come." I changed my mind. George walks to the window looking out at the Brooklyn Bridge. Baxter goes to the kitchen and turns the music off and stands in the kitchen doorway looking at him. "Are the rest of them on their way?" "Yeah, but I don't think I'll stay long. It's not a happy day for me." Baxter walks to him. "It's a beautiful view, isn't it?" "It's just a bridge." "It's more than a bridge, George. From where I come from, there wasn't anything like it at all. When I first arrived, I went to a bookstore and bought a book about the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge. Did you know that it was the longest suspension bridge in the world at that time between Manhattan and Brooklyn?" "No, I never knew that." "They started building it on January 2nd, 1870, and it took them 13 years to finish it. Isn't that something to admire?" "It's just a bridge. It's just steel, bolts, and concrete over water. Who cares?" "I do. I admire that work, to get from here to there, and there it is, still standing proudly for us to see. Don't you think it was worth it?" "I hate going to Manhattan. I like Brooklyn more." At that moment, there is a knock on the door. Baxter opens it, seeing Siddy wearing a dark dress. "I'm not a Girl Scout selling cookies. Aren't you going to ask me in?" "Your beautiful dress is absolutely stunning, Siddy." "Don't flatter me. Those days are all over. Can I get you a glass of wine?" "Do you have white wine?" "No, only red." "Red wine makes me drunk. I'll pass. Hello, George." "Hello, Siddy. What are you looking at? Are you counting pigeons?" "Ask Baxter. He's the authority of the Brooklyn Bridge." "Am I missing something?" "He doesn't like Manhattan." "I don't either. I hope you had the blue cheese dip in the refrigerator, because I don't want to be sitting on the toilet all day." Siddy picks up a carrot and dips it in the blue cheese. "Don't fright. It was chilled overnight." "My stomach thanks you. It was a lovely eulogy for your mother, wasn't it, George?" "Yes, it was." Siddy walks to George, and Baxter walks into the kitchen. "I remember whenever I came over to your house to visit with your mother, you two boys were always dressed in clean clothes, and they were ironed. She must have been chained to the laundry room. Do you remember that?" "No, if you say so." "Did I ever tell you how I first met your mother?" "I can't recall." "What? Do you have Alzheimer's?" "Well, anyway, I like telling this story. Baxter, come back in here. You might like it. And where's Marvin?" "Marvin and Sammy wanted to walk home after the funeral." "Well, I always liked a big audience, but I guess you two will do. It was in 1922 when I went to an audition for a stupid play. But all great actors started out that way too, and that was when I saw Ethel standing on the stage. She was holding a script, and I could see she was nervous, the poor thing, and I later found out it was her first audition. The director didn't help her any, especially when she got lost reading from the script, and he said, 'Little lady, if I had a mentally challenged character in the play, you'd have the part.'" "That can't be true, really? Would I lie about a thing like that?" "Of course not. It's true. She came off the stage in tears and headed for the stage door, and without even thinking, I followed her out into the alley and asked, "Are you all right? It's just a play, just a stupid play. Don't waste any tears out of your pretty eyes. That director doesn't know what he's doing." She wanted to be an actress? What's wrong with that, George? You make it sound like she was a cheap hooker on 44th Street. I didn't mean it that way. It just surprised me. There were a lot of things you and Marvin didn't know about my friend Ethel. Your mother was a very bright woman, and even smarter than me, and that's saying a lot. Whenever I visited your house, Ethel had two personalities. Whenever your father was around, she acted stupid, making him looking smarter than her. But when we went shopping together, she was a genius. When I first met her, she curiously asked me what I did for employment. I told her I was an actor, and she riddled off numerous names of authors and playwrights that she had read. We talked about the theater, and I was amazed by her knowledge, even though she never performed on a theater stage. As soon as Harry entered the room, she immediately became dumb and introverted. I saw the pain in her eyes whenever he was around. Marvin and Sammy entered quietly through the front door. "How was your walk?" "It was great. You came back just in time. We're sharing memories of Ethel. Do you have any?" Not at the moment." "How about you, George? You're his older brother." Where to begin? "Don't leave us hanging. She was our mother. She was the best thing in my life when growing up. She never said a harsh word to me, never. And she never looked down at my shortcomings. She was a great cook, and she was my best friend. She once asked me why I didn't look for a pretty girl to marry and have children with. I looked at her eyes and I started to cry. She wrapped her arms around me and I said, I was afraid I would be just like my father was to her. Your mother once told me that Marvin and you were the gems of her life, and she was so proud of both of you. She said George was the worker and her little Marvin was the thinker in the family. She had it all wrong. It was you, George, that did all the thinking. You looked after her and me. Thanks for the compliment, but Baxter's right. Mother worshipped you. You made her so proud. I turned out to be a loser. You weren't like father. You have brains and write beautifully. You spoke intelligently and did all the important things he didn't, and Mother admired that in you. I turned my back on her. She always told me you would come to your senses one day. But I didn't. The day before she died, she looked up at me and said, Marvin is finally coming home. He has a girlfriend now, and he kissed me on my forehead.
On the way to the hospital, in the ambulance, she grabbed my hand, whispering to me, don't let my Marvin fall again.
Marvin lowers his head and starts to cry as George embraces him. The lights slowly dim and go to black.